Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
After some of the events that have taken place yesterday and early this morning, I am going to send these words of wisdom out selfishly to Gina over at the station and myself here on this program. Lord, grant me the strength to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and above all, the friends to post my bail when I finally snap. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God bless America. Good morning. Thank you very much, Kate Smith, and God bless America. And good morning, everybody. I'm Zeb Bell back at the ranch, and we're our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers that include also Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Start on the route service today. Locally owned company serving you, Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. 734-6969. The reason I sent that to you and me is because we have similar and comparable personalities and temperaments. I just thought I'd throw that in.
Oh, hey, you know what? I laughed so hard because it's so true. And yes, I do have good enough friends who would post bail for me.
You know, I put a list together of people that I think would post bail bond, depending on how much it is. But that's a big play right there as to whether or not they'd fork over the money. But, you know, in this business, we are in live radio, and I book way ahead on this show, as you well know, all my guests. We're booked probably, in some cases, a month in advance. And then when people say, oh, gee, I forgot, or, oh, gee, I can't make it this morning, I'll have to do it another time, or politicians that are scheduled and you have really some very important things to talk to them about, and all of a sudden they pull backwards and leave, it does cause a little disconcernment.
Yes, and it causes one to reach through the phone lines and touch someone.
Oh, yeah, and not like a friendly AT&T commercial either. Oh,
No.
No. Do we have a pleasure?
Me, you, or Michael?
You haven't done it for a long time. Go ahead.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent job. And thank you, Gina. Right now it's time for the weather, and the weather is brought to you by Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Oh, my goodness. They've got all their new home decor items just put out in the store, and all kinds of new Valentine decor. Do you realize that's about 4 weeks away? You better stop in and see them today on all the new refurbished furniture at Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley, 678-6945. Look for their blue door. And they've got new hours too, Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 10 to 4. Right now here is Michael Rogers' weather.
It's going to be a boring day. Nice. Yeah, there's nothing to talk about today. You can't even talk about the Packers and Cowboys because the Packers are going to win. So, I mean, it's like, it's just blah day. Blah day. It's going to be like that for all the way to Friday. Daytime highs right around the middle 40s. Overnight lows, upper 20s, low 30s. just a blood kind of day. You know, can't talk about football, just a blood kind of day. So enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
I like that forecast. Thank you very much, Michael Rogers Weather.com. Cheney Flooring and Home Design, our sponsor, at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door. Really good, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you right off the bat this morning, if you are unaware of what happened early this morning, our time, about noon in Europe time in France, there was a horrendous happenstance this morning, and it's being investigated, it's being looked into. It is absolutely a scary situation. I don't know if you're aware, about 12 people now are known to be dead, and at close to that number also wounded by Muslim terrorists that went into a magazine company called Charlie Hebdo. And the company, their sin was that they had dared to run some humorous cartoons about the Muslim prophet Muhammad. And they'd done this a couple of years ago, I think, dating back the first time to 2006, second time 2011. And 3 gunmen, armed with the highest regulated rifles you can ever find, went into, I think they were Baryshnikovs, and they went into the magazine company and basically were asking where so-and-so is and or was, and then they started shooting. And this is a story that absolutely needs to be covered this morning, because we don't know if, underline that word if, it's going to happen here in the same vein. Now, here's the concerns, and I've been talking to people in New York and Washington, D.C. already that deal in terrorism, and many have been on my program. And later this morning, and I just hurriedly canceled one guest and got him on, later this morning at 10:30, we're going to be talking to Brian Fairchild, as you know, a former CIA operative, and he's going to give us his take on what's happening here. The whole thing boils down to that we have no idea how this was organized. I've listened to the various networks this morning, and as I said, I've talked to many of the people involved in the news, and almost all of the newscasts, to a person, would not say Muslim terrorists. They shied away. They used the words extremists. They used the words radicalists. And White House spokesman Josh Earnest kept referring to this act as violent extremism. And then also, here's something that was so ridiculous. He said, quote, "We condemn in the strongest possible terms." Oh, gee, that ought to really scare somebody. But not one of these people on the air, and I watched and listened to over 5 networks this morning, and called these people back in Washington and New York, and they too said they will not call it what it is. It's ridiculous. This magazine, caller, I'm coming, just a minute, stand by. This magazine has taken shots at almost anything and everybody, and they've made numerous cartoons that would offend me as a Christian, because they were cartoons regarding Jesus. Now, Christians didn't do anything as heinous as this, ever. But yet they put the cartoon in there about the Prophet Muhammad, and ISIS, which I'm sure that they will find out this group was sanctioned and sponsored by, 3 very cold, calculated killers got out of a black car and just wreaked mayhem in Paris, France. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Jeff. I hate to say it, but I don't think it's a matter if as much as a matter when. And I hope that as Americans here can stand up at that point in time, at that moment, that some level-headed, concealed weapon carrying person can help put a stop to it.
I just
feel that due to the administration, that they're already here and it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
I can't argue that point, and I've stated that point for a long time on this program, Riley, is that we need to be cognizant and we need to be aware. The ineptitude of human beings that live in rural areas and smaller areas by thinking it can't happen here or it can't happen to us. That is an extremely dangerous, naive attitude.
Oh, I agree with you. You know, we think we're sheltered in this small community, and we somewhat kind of are. However, we're just as vulnerable as a big city. I
agree.
And as far as it's okay to pick on everybody else but the Muslim faith, and if people were to admit that they're terrorists and say, well, it was a terrorist act, well, then I guess there is still a war on terror coming out in the Middle East, and it wasn't there.
Well, we've got a lot of things that we have to address, and honesty and calling things what they are some of the most important things. But for the White House spokesman to come out this morning, Josh Earnest, and it's just absolutely such a waste of time and such a waste of ink and such a waste of tape for the networks when he says, we condemn in the strongest possible terms. Gee, Riley, I'll bet that really scared the terrorists.
You know, they're cowards. That's what I really feel about it, that they're cowards. They have no backbone whatsoever to stand up and say, enough's enough.
I agree.
This is what you are. This is how we're going to treat you. If you want to deal with it, bring it on, or sit down and shut up.
All right, appreciate your call, man. Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, here is a point that I want to throw out for all the anti-gun zealots in the world, and some of which are here in this area, some of which even write for the Times News. France is, by the way, one of the most rigidly tough on gun control laws. And what good did it do them? 3 black masked terrorists walked into this magazine company with the most high-powered rifles made in the world and had backpacks loaded with ammunition in broad daylight, and left their vehicle in the middle of the street running with another driver, and they just literally walked casually and committed this mayhem. Caller, stand by. I promise I'll be right with you. I've got to get these commercials in. Stand by. Please do not go away. Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida, and Rupert, Sean, Mandy, the whole crew. And I want to tell you right now, they've got a great big sale on fishing needs. That's right. Time to stock up on all your fishing equipment. And if you mention my name, Zeb Bell, you'll get 10% off. That's right. You get a 10% off card to use for the rest of the year on your fishing needs. Go in today. Tell them Zeb sent me. You'll save money on all your fishing gear. And you can also get your fishing licenses there, too, at Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida and Rupert. You stop in and check it out today. Mention my name. Save money. Also, Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, open 7:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday. I keep telling you about changing the air filter in your furnace. Please do that today and get some of the best. Buy one or a package of quality air filters at Ramsey Heating and Electric. Just go in, tell them what you need, they'll get it for you. Very nice people. 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Bell. You know, I don't understand why we as a nation can't stand up. You know, they could get rid of all these problems if they would just do it. They could get rid of the terrorists. They could get rid of the rioters. Why are we being such passive idiots to think that it is not going to happen right here? It could happen in Rupert or Burley, Idaho.
I ran into a circumstance a couple of weeks ago, Donna, and I'm not going to get into names. I'm not going to get into anything. I'm just going to give you the circumstantial evidence of the conversation. And this person criticized me, called my cell phone number, which I readily give out, 312-2976, and said that I was trying to scare people and hype people with something that would, quote-unquote, never happen here. And I thought, if this is the kind of an idiot and his thoughts of idiocy that it'll never happen here, we are in deep trouble.
Oh, I totally agree. You know, we have to take the dadgum blinders off. We were just sitting here watching the news this morning, and in broad daylight.
At noon, over in France.
Yeah, these terrorists park in the middle of the dadgum street and open fire, kill 12 people. And I looked at George and I said, if they can videotape them with a damn camera, why can't they shoot them with a rifle?
Well, wait a minute. Let's be fair to the situation. Some of the people and some of the videos that caught these terrorist killers on tape were people living across the street in housing complexes. And, I mean, my goodness sakes, they were petrified to death. I mean, you can't blame them. If I know where you live, and let's say that down at the end of your lane, if there was something going on like that, don't you dare tell me that you wouldn't be as petrified and fearful as they were. And it's just something that today we have to be cognizant of because it can happen anywhere.
Well, that's true. And George, what he said to me makes a lot of sense, too. You know, over there, people don't carry guns. It's a gun-free zone.
Well, over there, the strongest gun control laws are in action over in Paris, France, unfortunately.
It's going to happen right here.
I agree.
If we don't stop it.
And this is a good time to just come right out and say this to the anti-gun zealots. Now, more than ever before in the world's time, I think it is great opportunities for people to be cognizant and aware and educated on gun safety and get concealed weapons permits, because you never know where or when.
You're definitely right, and I agree. I agree with you. I imagine those people are terrified.
Oh, absolutely.
My gosh, the police were building roadblocks. We've got to stop it. We have got to stop all this crap that is going on, because if we as a nation don't stand up and say, enough is enough, you guys are history.
I agree.
We're going to be sunk.
I agree. Donna, always good to hear from you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, my friend.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Caller, I'll be right there. Do not go away. Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, and Thomas and Terry, the whole crew. Wow. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I mean, the menu is absolutely just reaching out to you, calling you by name, saying, come eat, come enjoy at Denny's Restaurant, and you will. Everything is delicious, and, I mean, the portions are just absolutely phenomenal. You're going to love the food and the nice people at Denny's Restaurant. Now 2 locations, 611 Overland in Burley and 291 Pole Line in Twin Falls. Absolutely the best. The home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, Denny's Restaurant. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. I had a meeting yesterday with a senator in Twin Falls, and we got talking about this subject, and he said, if you think it is not going to happen here, he says, you're crazy. He says, get the book called My Name Used to Be Mohammed. Now, I haven't found the book yet, but I am looking for it. And he says, it is going to happen here. This guy lays it out. Sharia law and everything else.
There is absolutely, you ought to take the time, all listeners need to take the time and go, if you are computer savvy, which I am learning slowly, and watch the videotapes of what happened over in Paris, France, and watch the cold, calculated, very well-rehearsed manner of which these killers, these Muslim terrorist killers, went about their business in absolutely destroying life over there at that magazine company, and with the policeman that tried to stop them. It is so chilling, it'll just give goosebumps on the back of your neck. And Jack, you're so correct. We live in a naive society. After 9/11, we have become complacent again. I think you'd agree with me, and people are not realizing how dangerous this world really is.
That's completely true, and I mean, it's going to happen here. It's not, is it going to happen? It's when is it going to happen?
Well, I think that people need to be really aware that the police, God bless them, cannot be everywhere. They can't be there at the drop of a hat. They can't respond to a 911 call and instantaneously show up on your doorstep. Jack, I have preached on this program, and I know you said it too on the program. People have got to learn to be self-protective in this day and age and be cognizant and not naive as to there are dangerous, deadly people out there.
Well, I'm not going to put my faith in the Times News and let them protect me.
No, I don't think you're going to chase anybody away by wadding up a newspaper, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
All right, Jack. God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'll say this again. Now more than ever before, I think, in the history of this great United States, and maybe the entirety of the world's history, we all need to be more cognizant. We all need to be more aware. We all need to be more watchful. We all need to be more wary. We all need to be very, very concerned with our environment and who's in it. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget Barry Equipment and Rental with Eli and Nick and the whole crew, Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, South Lincoln and Jerome, and then also that beautiful new location at 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. They have all the equipment for getting the job done right. And right now, they've got 0% financing and great lease options on those great big Doosan loaders. Oh my, those are big, tough dudes. All you have to do is contact Nick and Eli to get your Doosan loader today. Retail equipment sales, equipment rentals, parts and service, all of this and more at Barry Equipment and Rental in Twin Falls, Jerome, and right there on West Highway 30 in Burley. Barry Equipment and Rental. Folks, this is an extremely dangerous subject this morning because everybody should be, and I understand as of just before coming on to the program this morning, there have been alerts raised all over the world. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Personally, that instead of working for gun control, we need to be gun aware and learn. Everybody should learn to shoot.
You know, Dal, I've said that for a long time. I mean, when I listen to the anti-gun zealots out there, and some that are just absolutely, I think, way off base on their thinking, like that op-ed piece in the Times News last Sunday, of which I'm going to be talking to Ryan Horsley about. Ryan owns Red's Trading Post, and he's going to be on the air at 10:06. Now, I don't care if you're 88 or if you're 8. People need to be aware of their situations. They need to be cognizant of who they're around, what's going on around them, and be watchful.
They do, and they need very much to know how to shoot a gun so they don't hurt themselves.
I couldn't agree with you more there. Dal, to you and your lovely bride, thank you for your call. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You know, here's a case in point, and I want you to think about this for a minute. One of the people I was talking to back east this morning prior to going on the air, we were talking about terrorism, and we were talking about getting the information, no matter how, about anything dangerous planned by these terrorists. And as you know, the do-gooders in our society are saying, oh no, why we can't do anything that's going to be exacerbating the problem. Why no, we can't sit down and we can't commit any act against them to try to get the information. We have to be the good guys and give them 3 square meals a day and a soft, cushy bed. Let me tell you something, that if this man, one of the men had been captured over in Paris, France, let's say prior to these heinous killings and shootings, and there was an opportunity to sit down and very violently question this man to get the information to save these people's lives, save these policemen's lives, don't you dare tell me that you wouldn't resort to any means necessary to get the information. Caller, I'll be right with you, I promise. I've got to get this in. Pacific Steel and Recycling, 320 West Main in Burley. Oh, my goodness. Employee-owned company, and they absolutely are the best in recycling for you and your family and always protecting our resources. Pacific Steel and Recycling, 320 West Main in Burley. Number to call, 678-2321. And right now, here is the Capital Press Ag Minute.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly. U.S. onion prices have plummeted significantly from last year's levels. Jumbo yellows are going for about $5 per 50-pound bag now, compared with $12 last year. Medium yellows are fetching between $3.50 to $4 per bag, compared with $10 last year. Processors say at those prices, growers aren't making any money. The price decline is the result of several negative factors, they say, including limited exports to Pacific Rim and Central American countries, where lots of U.S. onions traditionally end up. Asian countries are importing less from the U.S. When there are opportunities to export onions, it's difficult to get them shipped because of the West Coast port slowdown. For the Capital Press Ag Minute, this is Brandon Tenner.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and Capital Press.
Always offering superior customer service and drive-through recycling at Pacific Steel and Recycling. These are really nice people at 320 West Main in Burley. And don't forget, give them a call for questions, 678-2321. Bringing you the Ag Minute. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. You know, I can't understand where you're coming from on this statement that it hasn't happened here yet. It has. We've had the Boston bombing. We've had these guys with machete chopping people up. There's been buku Muslim attacks in this country.
Jerry, I have not, Jerry, wait a minute. I did not say that it hasn't happened in this country. I said the naivete of people thinking it can't happen in small-town rural America. That's the point I was making about the naivete of Americans.
Well, they're plumb stupid because it has happened. And it's happened over and over and over and over. I can't even account the number of times it's happened in this country, and this country ignores it. It just makes no sense to me.
Therein is the problem.
Boston bombing.
Therein is the problem, Jerry, is how do we as a society understand and realize and appreciate and finally fortify something against these terrorist killers? I mean, we're sitting back and we're being told, oh, it's a religion of peace. And at the same time, we see fathers driving over their daughters in parking lots in Arizona. We see husbands beheading their wives in New York City. Don't give me this religion of peace.
Well, I'm not trying to give it to you. I think we ought to do away with it, personally.
Well, now...
We need to, get people that are sane and obey our laws. If they don't want to obey the laws of this country, they shouldn't come here. And, we need to probably start with the people in our government that are letting the illegal aliens go through our gates without no reprehension.
Well, go one step further, and I keep in mind the conversation I had a couple of years ago, right here on this program, with Congressman Mike Simpson when he called me a McCarthyist and that I was looking under the rug for any potential problems because Obama had named some Muslim Brotherhood members to the cabinet. Well, I say to him and I say to his followers again this morning, Mike Simpson is naive and absolutely, I think, not considering the terror consequences of having certain members right there in the cabinet.
Well, I'll agree. They're setting ourselves up. There's no better way for them to attack us than from inside. They're tearing the country apart. We're running our oil prices up where they're so stupid that it's killing our economy.
Well, it used to be. It used to be.
The relief we've got right now, they figure probably last another few weeks at the most. And then it's going to go right back to the same old, and we're feeding the Arab nations with that money for higher oil prices. We're feeding our enemies in Russia and China. we're just doing things to ourselves that shoot our own foot off.
I agree, Jerry. I got to run and take some more calls, my friend. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a good day, sir.
Wonderful day. May the Lord bless.
Thank you, sir. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. Don't forget Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Now, I believe in these folks. I believe in Nick Greenwell and his staff. I believe that they are the best at what they do. And right after this week, I'm going to start going back down there and do some more work on my legs. Great exercises and sports medicine, and they can help you get back to being you. Excellent staff at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, and the number to call, 678-1191. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. We need to take our spineless president and go to Congress and declare war on ISIS. Because right now, we have no rules of engagement or anything else. They just dart in, do their damage, and then dart back out. My opinion would be if you could get the Congress to go along with it, is to find out where the nucleus is of ISIS, and then just bomb the daggone heck out of them.
Keith,
we're going to kill some innocent people, but it's a necessity.
Well, one of the things that really bothers me, and I've said this on this program numerous times over the last couple of years, is that when you have an enemy, and we have many enemies, but when you will not stand up and call your enemy out by their name, you are basically trying to cover up the fact that they are your enemy, and that's what this administration is doing.
Yeah, but if you go back to near the end of World War II and what Harry Truman did, and people criticized him for that, but he actually saved lives by his action, by ending the war, because people would have kept on being killed and killed and killed. And I think that if we need to get their attention, that we're not going to just lay down and let them attack us time after time and then dart into the woods and we just forget about it.
Mm-hmm. I can't dispute what you're saying, because I've said for a long time the best defense is a very, very strong offense. And I have not seen with this administration anything that's a strong offense to thwart or try to diminish a lot of our adversarial enemies. I'm sorry, I just haven't seen it.
Well, we've got John Boehner back in there again, and I hope he's went out and bought him some guts over the holidays, because he's going to need them.
Well, don't bet on it.
To make some decisions.
Don't bet on it, because I think if there were a sale on that item, he would have passed it up. Keith, God bless you, man. Thank you so much. Good to hear from you. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, take care. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. You want to hear something that just absolutely will just... It's got to infuriate you like it did me. Some liberals this morning of the left-wing lunatic fringe, which I think most liberals are, actually are blaming the magazine for this absolute chaotic killing because they, the magazine, spoke out against Islam. So you write something about a religion or a group of people in a free speech society over there to where they were exercising their free speech in criticism, and all of a sudden this chaos and this mass murder develops because somebody didn't like it. And the liberals blame the magazine and its staff. I mean, what kind of a warped, sick society are we living in? And I'll go back to this again. I got to say this. I'm proud to be a Christian. I may not be the best Christian, and I know I'm not. I've got a lot of holes in my screen door, so don't all you nutcases out there say, you this, you that. Yes, I know. I've got a lot of problems, and I've had more than my share of ample opportunities to be a better Christian, and I failed. Okay? We got that out of the way. But I'm going to say this, that with the mocking of Christianity and the tearing down of Jesus Christ and the destruction of what they want to do away with Christmas, the birth of Christ, etc., you don't see all dressed in black killers walk in and absolutely have utter chaos like they did this morning. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. During World War II, there was one of our soldiers was executed, and I believe it was for desertion. Now we have Major Hassan, who killed many people on our own military base, and then we've got this young punk terrorist that's going on trial. These people should have been executed right on the spot.
I'm not going to give you an argument if that's what you're looking for. I'm going to give you total agreement. I mean, Sanarov brother that's going up for the Boston bombings, and Nidal Hasan, and your point is so well taken, with Nidal Hasan especially, yelling Allah Allah Akbar and shooting and killing all those people and wounding so many others. I mean, absolutely save the courts, save us money, save the taxpayers, just go ahead and get rid of him. There was nothing that absolutely is making me more upset with our judicial system than the way this man, Nidal Hasan, has milked it for the enemy.
You know, I see in our cabinet we've got the Muslim Brotherhoods, and this jerk of a president that we have is doing everything he can to destroy the legal system and the Second Amendment and the rest of the Constitution. Why hasn't he been thrown out?
Well, you're asking me a question, and I don't care who you asked that of, Tony. I don't think they can give you a good answer. I don't know why. I don't know why there hasn't been a push to get rid of him, his ideology, and also his cabinet. I don't know, because people aren't standing up for what really is worthwhile and of value in this country anymore. I mean, my goodness. There are people that are naive this morning that are saying, well, gee, that's over in France. It's not here. How much more does it take to realize it can happen anywhere, anytime?
It's already been here in this country. What more proof do people need?
I don't know. Tony, always good to hear from you and Mary. Thank you so much. God bless you, man. Thanks. I am really frustrated this morning, and we're going to have more on this. I mean, people have got to realize, as they gaze out their windows here in southern Idaho with the sunshine and the cloudless skies and everything, all is not rosy, and we have to be very, very cognizant. Don't forget your friends at your Scouts Car Quest Centers. Customer satisfaction is always the goal. Excellent service to you since way back in 1949. Every detail matters. I'm telling you, they really care. I've been at every location. Super nice people serving you at Scouts Car Quest Centers. Located at 518 Overland in Burley, 323 East 8th and Highway 25 in Rupert. Exit 211, I-84 for the big truck stop they've got there. Oh my. They have all the accessories and supplies for virtually all vehicles. They've got all your antifreezes and your gas and diesel supplements. And now is a great time to have the custom filter surveys done. You'd better believe it. I'll tell you more about that tomorrow on the program, because this is quite a deal and save you money at Scouts Car Quest Centers. 3 locations where every detail matters. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yeah, go, buddy.
We got problems right here in the United States, and I'm going to mention some of the organizations. The Black Panthers, we got to be careful and better start watching them closer, because it's getting worse. You got people right down here in Magic Valley. They're coming in from overseas, and I've watched them go in there 3 at a time, pick up cell phones, and pay for them and leave the store. Now, what does them cell phones help do? except set off explosives if they want to.
Well, there again, I think you'll agree with me. I don't want to use anything as supposition or estimated facts. I only deal in hard, cold facts, and we haven't had a case where we have a hard, cold fact of that here. But what I am saying, Al, and I know you'll agree, everybody needs to be wary and watchful, and people are not doing that.
You better believe it, and that's what I'm doing. I'm being real careful. And when Keith said about how great Truman was, Truman made one of the biggest blunders I've ever seen a president make in my whole life. He fired a general that wanted to put a stop to that crap in Korea. What are we at now? Ceasefire, and that's it.
Yeah, there's pros and cons on that situation, as there are in many situations of history with our presidential leadership, etc. But right now, more than ever before, Al, we need leadership that's going to stand up, look the enemy in the eye, and say, that's it. We're going to draw a red line, and in Obama's case, keep erasing the line. But now, it's almost too late. We've got to get much tougher than what we are.
Well, we better start doing something with the Senate and the House of Representatives and the justice system, get rid of Holder and all them people that are causing this problem, and instead of sitting around here, patting them on the head and saying, nice job, fellas, nice job.
Yeah, and here's something else, too. For all the Arab-speaking nations this morning, okay, now is a excellent, opportune time to stand up and condemn what happened in Paris, France. And gee whiz, Al, I don't think you've hurt anybody.
No. I mean, anyway, it's just something we got to start watching people, because we let them sneak in on us during Pearl Harbor. So for hell's sakes, wake up to the fact it's going on right here in this United States, and we've got to stop it.
I agree, Al. Thank you for your call. Thank you, sir. Caller, I know I'm going to test your patience a little bit, but be nice, please. I've got to get the weather in real quick. Brought to everybody by Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. Ryan and the crew, and Red's Trading Post since 1936 for all your guns, all your knives, all your accessories, all your ammunition, all your reloading needs, everything right there at Red's Trading Post. They can help you, and they will. Stop in and see them today. Red's Trading Post in Twin Falls. Here now, Michael Rogers weather.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers says it was the rain. It's going to be a nice day. It's going to be a nice day. Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a nice day. It's kind of hard at times to forecast the weather when you know it's going to be a nice day. 40s for the high, mid-40s to be exact. And your overnight low will be right around 27, 28. So that's all I got to say. Good weather is on the weather yet.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. And we're going to be talking to Ryan Horsley at Red's Trading Post later on this morning. Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Jeff. Hey, you're talking about Adal Hassan and the corporal punishment. I think it needs to go further than just terrorists act against the United States. If we were to have the, I guess you'd say, infamous history of executing people for things such as stealing cattle back in the day, stealing horses back in the day. Now people are committing rape and murder and multiple murders and assault against children, and they're going to life in prison where they get food and a warm bed, and where hundreds of Americans are, thousands of Americans aren't getting the bed, aren't getting the meal, and yet they sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice, or someone in the family has. I guess what I'm getting around that is corporal punishment needs to come back, and it will stop a lot of things where, in my opinion, that's what I think.
Well, I'm not going to dispute that. As a matter of fact, I've always been supportive of capital punishment, and I think that each and every prisoner should have the essence of an extremely fair trial and possibly one appeal. But for these people to stay there in prisons for 35, 45, 55, actually life sentence when they were actually put on death row, it's a waste of money to the taxpayers, and I absolutely think it should be implied that you get one appeal and then that's it.
I agree, and the whole reason I bring this up is terrorism is an act which causes terror and disrupts people's daily lives and in their daily routines. So if we were to put forth the terror into their lives, that you come over here and you mess with us, you're going to die. That's just it. And that may sound cruel and callous, but that's the way it should be. This is America, man. We need to protect it. And like you're talking about, I'm tired of pandering to other countries.
Yeah, absolutely. Ronnie, I appreciate you calling back. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I just hope, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. President Obama today, I believe, unless there's been a change in the last hour since I signed on this program, I believe he's going to Michigan today, and I believe he's going to be talking about the auto industry. But wouldn't it be an ample and great opportunity for him, while speaking in Detroit tonight, to really look at the cameras and assure Americans that he will do everything he can in his power to make us safer and make the authorities more cognizant of what's going on with ISIS and others. I just wonder if he'll say anything. Don't forget your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. I rest assured that every time I go in there, I'm going to be just absolutely taken care of, and in a very timely fashion. Whether I go in there for tires or whether I go in there for anything else, front end alignment, shocks and struts, brakes, whatever, anything you need, they can take care of in a very professional way. And they've got all the batteries, too, all the batteries for your vehicles. And I mentioned brake service a minute ago. They are phenomenal when it comes to brake service. So please, for all your traction tires, all your tires, stop in and see the people that really can help you. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Go, caller. Talk to me.
Oh, good morning, Zeb. I forgot to bring something up earlier. We haven't learned a whole lot in this country. Prior to World War II, we shipped all of our scrap metal to Japan, and it came back to us in the way of bombs and ships and everything else against us. Now, we're shipping all of our industry over to China, and China is building up something else to use against us. They're going to have one of the mightiest militaries in the world. It's all going to come back to us in the way of destruction.
I think our foreign policy resembles a bunch of kindergartners playing with tinker toys. I absolutely have nothing good to say about our foreign policy. As a matter of fact, I've been against our foreign policy for even past Obama into the Bush and Clinton era, because we're acting like little children and very naive that nothing bad is going to happen. I still say the United States would be a lot better off like when Reagan was in president. We pick up a 2x4, we hold it in our hand, we smile and say, don't mess with us because we will hit you.
That's right. And, I don't think there's going to be much of a change with Boehner in there. I'm really concerned about this guy.
I couldn't agree more. That's another subject, but I just want to get into and quickly say I was shocked, not really, about how many liberals were very happy that John Boehner was reelected. That tells you something right there.
Yeah, absolutely. We are in major trouble.
I agree. Tony, thank you for your call. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye.
Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'm just really sickened by this story over in Paris, France. And I just, when I saw the videos and I heard the screaming and the gunshots going off, and a police officer laying on the sidewalk begging for his life, and these killers walked up to him and made sure that he never took another breath. Then they very callously, very slowly turned around, walked down the street. One of the killers reached down under the car, and they had evidently knocked a shoe out of the car when they had got out. He reached down very, very slowly and cautiously, picked up the shoe, threw it in the car, sat down on the passenger side as the other killer got in, and they drove away. Did they speed? No. They just very slowly drove away. This was all very methodical. This was all rehearsed. And it just sickens me that the evil in this world is taking a firm grasp on any and all societies. And nobody is fighting back. Coming up next hour, we're going to talk to my good friend Doug Johnson in Colorado, and I'm going to mention this to him along with some other subjects. And then at 9:30, we've got Matt Philbin coming on, managing editor of the Media Research Culture, and we're going to be talking about the terrorism going on around the globe. Ryan Horsley at 10:06 this morning is going to be on the program, as I mentioned, and we're going to be talking about the anti-gun zealots all the way from Bloomberg right on down to people locally that want to see our guns gone. And then, as I said, at 10:30 this morning, don't miss CIA operative, former CIA operative that's been with the bad guys in a lot of different parts of the world, and that's Brian Fairchild. It's going to be extremely interesting, and we'll get his take on what happened over in Paris, France. And with his expertise, I'm sure he's going to share with us, all of us, as to what we need to know and what we need to be doing to help protect ourselves and our families. All of that and more coming up on Zeb at the Ranch. We're going to take a little break right now for about 6 minutes, and we'll be back. Don't go away. Welcome back. Hour number 2, Zeb at the Ranch on a Wednesday, January the 7th. A year ago today, at this exact time, I was being wheeled into the operating room in Salt Lake City. A year ago today. My goodness. Thank you very much to your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations. Thank you very much for all you do, along with some of our great advertisers, and we'll hear more about them right now. Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. A locally owned company. People that live here. They do their business here. They serve you, locally owned folks, at Western Waste Services. Kelly and the crew, get on the route service. I'm telling you, you're going to be so satisfied. Every week, like clockwork, on Thursdays, the big truck comes up there and the arm goes out, grabs that great big container. Up it goes, empties it out. Man, they are good. Excellent route service. And maybe you need a dumpster to fill up, you're cleaning out the basement or the garage or whatever. Absolutely best of service to you. 734-6969, the number to call. Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Wonderful, wonderful people. Real quick, before we get Doug on the line this morning, I want to remind everybody, too, about our dear friend Joel Heward. This man is just absolutely so nice, as is his family and staff at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, and very flexible hours to serve you. They definitely are there when you need them, and they always treat everyone with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Locally owned and operated, absolutely. And the number to call for information, 436-5636. That number again, 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, serving you and your family. Well, here we go. My dear friend in Colorado is on the line and waiting, and I don't know how aware he is as to what's been happening around the globe, especially over in Paris, France this morning, but we'll find out from him. Doug Johnson, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Zeb.
Doug, I read your editorial, and it was absolutely great, your blog on John Boehner, and I want to get into that in just a few minutes. But for the first hour, the whole first hour this morning, I have been absolutely centering all my information on the terrible, terrible killings and shootings that took place at a magazine company in Paris, France. Are you aware of what's happened?
I'm aware there was a shooting, and last I heard 12 people were dead and many looked in bad shape, so, but that's all I know.
Well, basically, it's been ascertained to be either an ISIS or a Muslim terrorist act, and these heinous killers, very hardcore, just walked into this magazine company with Baryshnikov rifles and just absolutely caused utter carnage. And I think that it should be brought up, and I brought it up last hour, that we, the United States of America, need to be much more cognizant and much less naive. Some people think, well, it happened over in Paris, but it can't happen here.
Oh, I don't mean to laugh. I mean, to me, that's a little naive. Not only can it happen here, it has happened here, and will continue to happen here. We don't have the protections that we may think we do, and a lot of things happen that we don't hear about. They purposely keep it hush-hush. They don't want us to think things are happening. But no, certainly it can happen here. And if we have any thought that this president's going to stand up, even this government, forget the president, the government in general, either party, are not going to stand up. I will come out that far and say it. I will probably be offensive to people in your audience this morning, Zeb, because I am so fed up with what's happening. We have lost absolute and total control of our government, and right now I'm thinking there's really no way for us to get it back short of a revolution.
Okay, now that leads us up to John Boehner, and let me just give you some thoughts about what I saw yesterday, and you can disagree or agree with me. I saw the old guard. I saw the same old take over and resume its position of power. I saw some people that wanted to change. I saw some people that were advocating change. I heard speeches about, well, we got to get so-and-so in there. We got to get so-and-so in there. But when the chips were down and the votes were on the line, the Republican Party wilted like a flower in the hot sun, and only 24 voters came against John Boehner. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it shows us what really true conservatives we have, which are just a minuscule number. The left in the Republican Party, which is the establishment, it's the majority of the party. They have control. They've wanted to squash and get rid of any conservatives whatsoever, any conservative voice, and they're very proud of the fact right now that they have done this effectively. And frankly, we don't have a voice, because now they, as I said in my blog post this morning, now they are punishing those who voted against Boehner. So that when you and I went to our representatives and demanded that we want change in Washington in the November elections, and then we saw the Republicans cave even before this Congress took office, and then we said, okay, then get rid of this speaker. We want somebody who's going to lead effectively. And a few representatives from around the country, 24 people, were willing to stand up and say what their constituents asked them to do. Most of them wouldn't even do that. When they do that, now they're being punished by the Republican Party and losing all their positions of power and strength and influence. What this says is we do not have a voice in Congress. We're not allowed to have a voice. That Congress, the establishment Republican Party, will tell us what we're going to think. They will tell us what's acceptable. We do not have freedom in America anymore, Zeb. It is over. And that's where we're at. It is that serious. And the blog post that I know you're talking about that I wrote this morning, that got tweeted. I don't do a lot on social media, but I tweet some blogs every now and then. It got tweeted. And I've gotten a vicious blowback from people when I made the statement in my blog that the re-election of John Boehner to House Speaker is worse for America than the re-election of Barack Obama in 2012. And I will hold to that, because I believe with all my heart that's the case, because we've lost a voice against the Democrats. We don't have one now.
I agree, and I'm, as a matter of fact, on my Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, going to write about basically the same thing this weekend. But one thing that really got to me this morning, and I don't know if you caught this or not, but there was an interview early this morning at about 4:15 with Eugene Robinson from the Washington Post newspaper, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is very, very close to a direct quotation, some liberals are very happy that Boehner was reelected, and the challengers of the insane wing of the Republican Party lost.
Oh, yeah, this is exactly the same thing that happened in the midterms. The left is very, very happy that Boehner and McConnell are in control, that the people who are in power in the party are in power, because they know that they are their allies. They may put on the front that they're not, but, and I've said it many times before, when I started doing investigation for my book a few years ago, No Tomorrows, and I started to learn more about the progressive movement, and found out that the entire plan for the last 100 years has not just been to overthrow our government, but one of the ways they would do that is they would get control of both parties so that if the American public got fed up as we are right now, and we threw the one party out of power to bring the other one in for change, it wouldn't matter because they would still head for the same goals, and that's exactly what has happened. The Democrats were taken out of power in November, and the Republicans come in, and we are headed on the exact same path. There's a few minor differences, but ultimately it's the same goal of big government, lack of freedoms, lack of control, and when America goes down, and I fear I don't want to say I fear, but I'm sad to say I think we're headed that way very quickly now. We're not just going to become another European socialist nation. We will hit a level of depression and poverty and lack of freedom that Americans can't even conceive. It's never happened in this country. And we're going to go to a level that is going to be devastating to our society. And Zeb, the other thing that's going to happen is it's going to destroy freedom throughout the world because we are the linchpin. We're the cornerstone of freedom. When we're gone, it's all over.
Well, what's going to change? What is going to change? Nothing. You've got Mitch McConnell, an old has-been and a wannabe for the future. You've got John Boehner, and you've seen how this man up front on the different camera shots for the networks, oh, darn Obama, oh, we've got to change this philosophy. And then at 5 o'clock, they all sit down and have a drink together and plan out more of their strategy. I am so sick of the yes men. I am so sick of the, oh, let's get along to go along. I don't care if they have fist fights on the floor of the Senate, but I want some representation for the people of America.
I would agree, and we have just lost that with what's happened now that Boehner is punishing those who voted against him, taking away their power.
Oh, boy, yeah.
It is saying the American people don't have a voice anymore. We are not allowed to have our representatives vote the way we tell them. We're not allowed that, according to the establishment Republican Party. And when you say there's going to be no change, while I agree with you for the sake of discussion, I'm going to make the statement of, yes, there is, but here's what the change is going to be.
Yeah.
The change is going to be that not only will they continue to support Obama's executive amnesty that is going to flood this country with illegal immigrant or criminal immigrant invaders, as I prefer to call them, and they will become mostly Democrats, and that will give the Democrats so many voters we can't overcome them no matter what we do. That's the first thing. But the second thing, as of yesterday, that will now happen is you had at least 30% of Republicans ready to bolt the party over what's happening and demanding change in the leadership. As people decide they've had enough and they leave, and of course I left years ago, but I still supported the party, but I left the party years ago when they wouldn't throw Clinton out of office, and what is going to happen is you're going to fracture the party. There probably will be a rise for a third-party movement. There is not time for a third party to get strong enough to make change in America before everything is lost, and the result is between the added Democrat voters with the illegals coming in and the fracturing of the Republican Party or the conservatives in this country, which is basically the mainstream people, most people are conservative, they will have no voice, and we will see this country taken over and controlled by the progressives, and we don't have a chance in the lifetime of anybody listening or anybody who has a relative listening at any age will never see again the America we have known. I'm not sure that when Ronald Reagan said we may enter into 1,000 years of darkness, that it will be that short.
Yeah.
I think it may be really over for America. I think this is extremely serious, and I had no intention of writing about this morning, but when I got up and I was thinking about it, And I'd read news last night, and I just said, I've got to write this, and that's why I did. So I think we face a really, really bad situation right now.
Yeah, and here's something else. You mentioned in your blog, and he's not exactly my dearest, closest buddy, Idaho's Mike Simpson. And you made the statement, and you said, and I'm going to read it as it is, I quote, Idaho's Mike Simpson, when asked if there should be repercussions against those who voted against Boehner, said, I don't know, but there should be. You know something? The careers of Ted Yoho and Louis Gohmert and others that wanted to stand up and be more of a voice for the people, their careers are over in politics. And that eraser already has come out thanks to John Boehner. And it's almost like a political mafia. Would you accept that terminology?
Oh yeah, we know the establishment has it out for. They're trying to destroy Mike Lee now in Utah, one of the strongest conservatives we have in government. This is absolutely. I think you've used the right word. I don't think it's even an exaggeration at all. I think your wording is very right.
But my concern is this morning that the general public, due to the fact that they are force-fed only what the media wants to have them hear, they're going to sit back and they're going to go, oh yeah, John Boehner, good old boy. And they're just going to go along and to get along, and nobody's going to make any waves, nobody's going to make any ripples, there's going to be more diminishment and disintegration of the Tea Party and the influence. I'm very, very concerned like you.
Well, I think we should be, because there is not the influence, the ability to influence now, and sure, there are still a few voices who will speak out. The Ted Cruzes of the world will speak out, but they are very small in numbers, and they will be pushed aside. And the goal is, I guarantee people that what I said the day after the 2012 re-election of Barack Obama, the statement I made, and I wrote about a day or two after that election, that Jeb Bush would be the candidate the Republicans wanted in 2016. I see that coming. He's establishment. He is dangerous. And what comes along with him is McConnell and Boehner and this whole group. What they want to do is wipe out the power of conservatives entirely because they simply want big government. And this is, we're already on a path of destruction. Economically, morally, in every way you can measure.
Yeah.
And this will just reinforce that. And so the future we face is very, very dark, Zeb. And really, we don't have, by the way our system works, a lot of people are saying things like, why didn't we throw Obama out? We can't throw Obama out short of impeachment, and we can't get that through because of the establishment Republicans.
I agree.
I have to lay this at the feet of the American voters. This is not the Democrats' fault. This is not the Republicans' fault. We're the ones who allowed them to get in office and stay there. We didn't hold them accountable, and now we unfortunately made our bed and we're sleeping in it.
I want to take this call, and then when I come back, I want to talk to you more about Jeb Bush, because, boy, you're not going to find any milk of human compassion poured in a cup for him. I don't like him, and I'll tell you why in just a few minutes. Caller, go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning. Don't you think at this point maybe a convention of states is in order, and would it do any good? And I'll hang up and listen.
When you say convention of states, are you specifically talking about a certain project? Are you talking about a constitutional convention? What are you talking about?
Well, it can be a constitutional convention.
I'm very aware and wary of constitutional conventions for the wreaking of havoc that it could have on a piece of paper that means more to this country than any other constitution in the world. And I'll have Doug respond. Hey, by the way, it's good to hear from you, caller. Take care. We'll have him talk to you. Go ahead, Doug. I'm very wary about constitutional conventions and everything else. I don't want to see anybody have an opportunity to slide something through that would diminish our Constitution.
Well, a convention of states, if he's talking about what I think he is, which is an Article 5 convention,
okay.
And anybody who has not read Mark Levin's book, The Liberty Amendments, is foolish, because that book may be the only thing left that can save this country. And Mark Levin may be the finest constitutional scholar in the country, and he wrote this book, and in the book, he proposes a convention of states. Our founders set up our government with this Article 5 issue there to protect us for exactly what is happening right now in our country. When the federal government gets out of control, the only thing we have is the states can pull that back into control by having a convention of states. Now, it's not a constitutional convention the way we usually think of, because you have to have, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, I think it's like 35 states have to agree, and so to make any changes. But what allows them to do is go in and pull the control back from the federal government. And that probably is the only hope we have. Now, will it work? I don't know, but I know there's a movement on for it, and we can only hope and pray that if it's a good thing, that would happen for the country. But other than that, Zeb, there really is no other recourse the American voters have. We don't have the power to make any changes. Well, and so we're caught right now where we're at, and it's a very dangerous situation. And I say we don't have any other recourse. The other recourse, and I have never advocated this, but the other recourse is to do what Thomas Jefferson said, and that is every now and then, actually he said every 20 years you should have a revolution, and we're way past 20 years.
And you know, today's age, the minute that you say that word, you have all the people in the greater Salt Lake area down at the NSA revving up their tape recorders and going after all the phone numbers and the people that are talked to or have been talked to, i.e. you, me, and everything else. I mean, there is absolutely a kind of a clandestine plot against anybody that would mention that word. But this country needs to have a voter revolution. This country needs to have a revolution for our constitutional values, and I agree with you.
Well, it does, and the sad part is, and I've talked about this many times, the American people do not get involved. The American people wait until Labor Day, then they decide they'll tune into what's going on with the elections, and in that 60 days between Labor Day and Election Day, they make their decision who they're going to vote for. The years prior, when they should be active and involved, and at least every 90 days, maybe every 30 days, conservative groups should be camping out and demanding meetings in town halls with their representatives and senators, and letting them have it, and using the power of the midterm elections is not happening. The American people sit back and they think of our president as king. They treat him as such, and they think our elected officials are above them, and they sit back and they really don't worry about it because they're so busy with their own little lives, their self-indulgent lives, that they don't pay attention. And the end result is what we have today. And so we are in a situation where, you're right, we need a voter revolution. We need the voters to wake up and do something. But I'm not sure we may have the 2016 election cycle left to do something, but it's very questionable after what happened yesterday.
I had a caller and also a friend call me day before yesterday and say something to the effect that, I'll bet you're really happy that Jeb Bush is going to run for president. And I stunned this individual, and I said, absolutely not. I would no sooner have Jeb Bush become president of the United States than I would take my hand and stick it down in the bottom of a rain barrel and scrape off the pond scum. I don't want this man because of his stand on immigration. I don't want this man to be president because of his stands on immigration reform, Common Core, and also gay marriage. I don't like Jeb Bush.
Well, he's an establishment Republican, just as his brother and his father are. They're good people in the sense of being honorable, nice people, but they do not have the answer for America. And people who think they do really don't understand what's going on. What amazes me, Zeb, as you're telling me this story, is I'm sitting here listening, and you're telling me that your friend was shocked at your opinion. I'm surprised you didn't know your opinion. Why would he think you would be supportive of Jeb Bush?
I guess it's just because I did have some common value association with Big Brother George. I really did, because I thought George Bush, after 9/11, I think showed the Ronald Reaganism that was necessary to go after the bad guys. I'm not saying I was adherent to all the policies of George Bush by any means, whether it was the senior or the junior. But as far as Jeb is concerned, he's turned coat on a lot of issues. As a matter of fact, I'll give you one real quick, and we only have 2 minutes left. In 1994, he was taped coming out and condemning gay marriage. Now he's an advocate of it. Now, I don't like people that just for the sign of the times or a progressive attitude change their viewpoints.
Well, I certainly would agree with you on that, and yet I think that, we see a person's real integrity. I addressed this in a blog post last week, or the week before, maybe it was this weekend, I don't remember when, and I talked about Jeb Bush, and I talked about him on the issue of abortion, and he supports abortion in limited circumstances, but is generally considered pro-life. And my argument is, if you're not against abortion, all abortion, for any reason whatsoever, then you're not pro-life, because life is life, and the sanctity of that life is critical. And so I count that against him. And a lot of people would disagree with me, but I count that against him, and I think that's a good example of where his principles are. And you're right, his issues on amnesty and Common Core, they're not acceptable, and there are people who wonder why he's not considered conservative enough. Well, those issues right there are enough to disqualify him as a conservative in my book.
Absolutely. Wow. Doug, it goes too fast. I swear that the hamsters speed up on the treadmill to make the time go faster. I really enjoyed the conversation this morning. God's blessings to you and your family back in Colorado, and we'll talk to you next week.
That sounds great, Zeb. Thanks, and the same to you.
All right, sir. Doug Johnson in Colorado, and he has the Horse Sense blog, and we really appreciate him. Author of many, many books, too, especially the book No Tomorrows. Oh, my goodness. I got another guest waiting in the wings already, and I've got to tell you real quick about Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. Oh, that's where the fun is sold. I'm telling you. They've got the 2015 Yamaha snowmobiles. Whoom, boom, boom. Fun in the angel dandruff, and they've got all the accessories, and they've got accessories for the motorcycles and all the ATVs. Have you been over and looked at that showroom floor? Oh my goodness, I don't know how they got everything in there. Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley, and they're open to the point where they're saying, come on in, we're going to serve you with the best of items to have fun. And they've got all the accessories and a fantastic service department too. Where the fun is sold, Let's Ride. You stop over and see them today. Oh my goodness, we jumped from one little puddle of water to another puddle of water this morning, and right now we say good morning to, every time I have this man on my program, and I apologize to him, I want to always call him Regis Philbin. His name is Matt Philbin, managing editor of MRC Culture. Please, Matt, forgive me, I almost called you Regis again.
I kind of get that a lot. I do wish I was related, though, in something more than a very distant way. I'd be very rich, I think.
Well, listen, I respect you for coming on this morning, and boy, I don't even know where to start. For the last 2 hours on this show, I've been talking about this deadly shooting in Paris and how naive Americans are, thinking, well, that's over in Europe, it's not here. Give us your thoughts about what you know so far regarding what happened with this newspaper.
Well, I really don't know much more than anyone else. This is a satirical newspaper that published covers and cartoons about not just, by the way, Islam and Islamic figures, but also about Christians, Catholics, socialists, conservatives, everybody. It was, to my knowledge, a very across-the-board satirical magazine. Mm-hmm. The fact that it was not afraid to step on Islamic toes, so to speak, speaks well of it, but they have paid the price. Yeah. And it's really now up to the Western media to cover this honestly and to say exactly what happened and to highlight the threat to free speech, to free expression, and frankly, to 5,000 years of Western civilization as we've understood it.
Well, but, Matt, I already this morning have been on the phone with many, many people all across the United States, especially in Washington and New York, and I listened to Josh Earnest, and here is what I would say, absolutely ridiculous speech pattern that comes out of the White House. Here were his words when he was asked about this shooting. Josh Earnest, quote, "We condemn in the strongest possible terms." Boy, that sure struck fear in my backbone, didn't it yours?
Ooh. Yeah, and the White House, I guess, was also reluctant to call it terror.
Yeah.
Which even France's socialist president wasn't. So, how do you say workplace violence in French? Look, this administration is so cowardly when it comes to these things. I wish that we had some grown-ups in charge who could really speak to the danger we in the West face from this, but we don't.
I like that.
Unfortunately, the administration is interested, like the media, in just painting happy faces on Islam and letting it and turning its back.
They will not, and you know this is true because you've reported on it, they will not say anything except like violent extremism or radicalism. They will not call the culprits what they really are. And that leads me right up to the story that you wrote about the Boston bombers, the Tsarnaev brothers, and this trial for Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. I hope I'm saying the name fairly close, but I just don't think that we're going to see anything come of this trial other than a waste of taxpayer money. Now, your thoughts?
Well, he's got to stand trial. I'm all for it, it's up to Boston. It's up to the state of Massachusetts, the jurisdiction, to seek justice here. I see nothing wrong with that. My problem is with the media surrounding it and what they're saying.
Absolutely.
They have not ascribed the motive here. And we know what the motive is. The motive was radical Islam and a political form of radical Islam that Tsarnaev explicitly wrote in a note. And the media is ignoring. The three broadcast networks, when they covered on Monday the jury selection, nobody mentioned it. And it's a huge disservice to the viewership, and it's a huge failure of journalism.
Yeah, but wait a minute, Matt. You're not a coward. You stood up this morning and associated your name with that statement. But why? Why is the media ignoring it? Is somebody in their back pocket? Why is the media giving this a soft soap sell?
Okay, it's one of a few reasons, or it's a combination of reasons. Number one, they can criticize Christians all they want, and Christians don't behead anybody. They are cowardly. They are afraid. And, to some degree legitimately, obviously, as we've seen in Paris. You have pressure groups like CARE, who, the last thing any liberal journalist wants is to be painted as some sort of bigot. It is even more than, say, the fear for their lives. That is what they're afraid of. And then finally, you have this sort of post-colonial sympathy with Muslims who are seen as the oppressors, who are against America, so they must have a point in the eyes of a liberal journalist. It is a sympathy that they have, and they really do not want to make it any worse for Muslims. Mm-hmm. They also tend to believe that our nation is bigoted and violent, and there will be a backlash against Muslims, like the one that never appeared after 9/11, that they're still waiting for. They're very deluded, and unfortunately, it gets in the way of telling the truth. And this is how you end up. You end up a few truth tellers actually get targeted because the real truth, the whole truth, isn't out there on any widespread basis.
Okay, now wait a minute though, Matt. You're back there on the East Coast, and you can follow all that's being said and or written about. Do you mean to tell me that we've sunk so low in the tank of apathy or trying to be politically correct that nobody has the backbone or literally the guts to speak out and call it a duck if it's quacking and walking?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying. It goes against the sensibilities of cosmopolitan, left-wing, or just conventionally liberal reporters. That's not the world they live in. They cannot. The only people they can call, in black and white are the ones they see as bigoted rednecks or Tea Party felons or whatever else their boogeyman is. But it's never going to be Muslims. It's never going to be people that they see got the short end of history. And unfortunately, it creeps all over the place. Now, of course, conservative media takes it on. But conservative media is told that we're Islamophobic, that we are bigoted and xenophobic, and we just want to kill people. It's ridiculous, but it's the price you pay for looking squarely at the truth.
So basically what you're saying is, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth by any means, but there's two words that come to my mind. There's no hope.
Well, there's always the hope that something as atrocious as this will wake people up. It woke enough people, 9/11 woke enough people up that we were able to take action. Hopefully this will cause, at least if nothing else, a sort of an awakening in Europe, where their problems are far worse than anything we have on the domestic front in terms of the threat of Islamic violence, because they've got massive unassimilated Muslim populations who are being radicalized, and basically they have no jobs. They have nothing to do but be radicalized. They've got a big problem on their hands, and if they start waking up, maybe some of the cosmopolitan internationalists on this side of the pond will start waking up too.
One of the people that I talked to earlier this morning really kind of scared me a little bit, because he was addressing the fact of how this trial for the Sarnoff brother is going to come off, and he alluded to the fact, he said, just wait. He said as they get closer and closer and further into the trial, there is going to be a massive media, oh, that poor boy attitude. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think there will be, to the degree that they can get away with it. They've said that the defense is going to paint him as under the influence of his older brother, and, he's a poor, disaffected kid, and blah, blah, blah. And I think the media is happy to jump on that. And you've already seen, look, that cover of Rolling Stone he's got a teenage girl fan club that refuses to believe he had anything to do with the bombings. Not that they matter, but it's a marketing gig from the left, frankly. And I think you're going to hear that a lot. And I think a lot of people are going to, certainly the death penalty is in question. And if he's convicted and the death penalty is imposed, oh boy, they are going to, the gnashing of teeth is going to be something to behold.
Matt, this morning on MSNBC, and I was switching the dial. I was going as fast as I could to pick up all their different commentaries on this problem over in Paris. And some liberals are actually blaming the magazine in Paris for creating the problem, because they ran some of the cartoons against the Prophet Muhammad. And this one particular liberal was basically putting all the blame on the shoulders of the magazine.
Yes, and I've seen the same thing on Twitter from liberals. Sally Cohen was one saying, we don't have the right to insult other people's religion. Yeah, we do, actually. It's called free speech. It's called, in this country, the First Amendment, and it's ingrained in civilization, in Western civilization. We have the right to speak about anything we want to. There are limits, but those limits usually extend to inciting violence, and nobody's inciting violence to criticize the prophet or to ridicule the prophet. Mm-hmm. The inciting of violence happens on the other side. It happens every Friday in mosques across Europe and the Middle East, and sadly here. To blame the magazine for this is just cowardice. it's all you can really say is it's cowardice.
Let me ask you one final
capitulation.
Well, one final thought on this morning, Matt. We've already covered it somewhat, but I want you to address it again. I'm hearing a lot of naivete from the American audience. I'm hearing a complacent attitude. And it seems like after 9/11, we were all ready to join arms and go after the bad guys and put them asunder. And then all of a sudden that feeling left. And then we had the left-wingers come out and say, oh, don't show the planes hitting the towers. It's too hard on our children. I said on this program we ought to show it every day and then play the national anthem and instill pride in this country. But how do we overcome this naive attitude that now seems to be growing like a cancer in this country?
Is it a naive attitude in the country, or is it a naive attitude in the media? And frankly, I don't think it's naive. I think it's cynical. I think it's cowardly and cynical. Again, the media does not want to report on this. They want it all to go away. They want to focus on the healthcare ferry, bringing everybody coverage and things like that. This is not what they want to report on, so they don't do a good job with it. That's where the apathy is. That's where what's perceived as apathy is. It's not on the part of everyday Americans. Everyday Americans understand there's a threat. If you tell them about it, they know how to respond, unless they're totally blinkered left-wingers ready to blame America for everything. The way the American people understand existential threats, and they will respond correctly if they are told the truth. And with this administration and its compliant media, they're not being told the truth.
Let me ask you, do you think that there is a chance, a very small one, that tonight in Detroit, when Obama's addressing the automakers, that he may say something as far as a get tough attitude against what happened in Paris, or will he just basically shine it by?
If he says anything about it, he's going to lecture us again about how this isn't Islam. This isn't anybody's religion. This is something utterly separate from Islam. And don't forget, he's in Detroit, which up by there's a huge Islamic population. Mm-hmm. If we know anything about our president, he loves to pander. So he's not going to say anything that is remotely tough. Maybe he'll surprise me, I don't know. But it's been 6 years. He hasn't done anything yet.
I just had a thought. I want you to respond to this real quick. I'm going to run a little bit over here, but with the potential closing of Gitmo and the wanting of this administration to bring all the bad guys here to this country and kind of put them at various locations, whether it's Nebraska, whether it's Texas, whatever, and then give them trials, the vagaries that are going to come out of those trials and kind of a watered-down effect, we're actually, in my opinion, aiding and abetting the terrorists by doing so. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I do agree. I think it's stupid. I think there's no reason for it. I, for one, don't really. I can't work up any sympathy. I don't care how long they've been sitting there. They're a danger, and the recidivism rate on the part of Gitmo detainees who've been cycled back into their home countries is incredible. Look, he's releasing guys. Didn't he just release 5 the other day?
Yeah.
It's a question: what could go wrong? Why would you put experienced fighters back on the street? Experienced fighters with a big grudge.
Absolutely.
I can't see why he would do it, and I don't understand it, except that, again, he's got to pander to his left.
What is the mindset back there, Matt, on the East Coast? I mean, you go to lunch with these people, you stop in and maybe have an adult beverage with some of these folks after work. I mean, surely they can see through the smokescreen of this Obama administration.
There is a general reluctance, I think, on the part look, everybody's so invested in him on the left. Remember, this was their savior. this was the one with his creepy North Korean cult of personality. They were terribly invested in him. They still are. You see cracks here and there, criticism from the media. They can't hide what kind of bad days he's having, what kind of bad months or years he's having. But they will never admit it. They will never come out and admit it. The happy faces they put on every disastrous aspect of this administration are, if things weren't so really dangerous, it would be really funny.
Absolutely.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I want to tell you, you're first class, Matt. I really appreciate it, and I'd like to have you on a more regular basis. Matt Philbin, Managing Editor, MRC Culture. As I said, you're first class and always welcome here, sir. God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zeb.
Take care. Thank you. I really enjoyed his comments. Matt Philbin with Media Research Center Culture back on the East Coast, and tells it like it is. We got some problems in this country, folks, and it's not time to fold the pillow over each ear and bury your head, for heaven's sakes. It is time for the weather. I'm going to get the weather in here, and it's brought to everybody by Riverview Urgent Care and Medical Center. These are the nicest people. These are the most aware people and the most serving people at Riverview Urgent Care and Medical Center, 382 North Overland in Burley. Minor emergencies, major care. They will see you today. Now, maybe you've got an ear infection. Maybe you got a sprain, a strain, a fracture. Yes, they treat everyday injuries and illnesses right away. You just be sure and give them a call, 678-6996. 678-6996, located at 382 North Overland in Burley. And right now, here's the weather with Michael.
Hello, everyone. Michael Rogers says it was a rain. It's going to be a nice day. It's going to be a nice day. Yeah, it's going to be a nice day. It's kind of hard at times to forecast the weather when you know it's going to be a nice day. 40s for the high, mid-40s to be exact. And the overnight low will be right around 27, 28. So that's all I got to say. Good weather is on the way to yacht.
Thank you, Michael. Don't forget, brought to you this hour by Riverview Urgent Care and Medical Center, 382 North Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-6996. Minor emergencies, major care, they will see you today. You know, we haven't had a chance all morning long to say hello to Little Miss Shy over at the station. Good morning, Little Miss Shy.
A little Miss Shy, that's okay. You've been busy and I've been busy.
Hey, we've had a gangbuster program, I think, with the guests that we've had on this morning.
Amen.
And we're not done yet. We've got two big heavy hitters coming up, Ryan Horsley and one of my all-time favorite people, Brian Fairchild.
I really enjoy listening to Brian Fairchild. He's very, very knowledgeable, and I'm kind of excited to hear what Ryan has to say. I kind of know, I'm kind of guessing what you're going to be talking about with Ryan, but he's always very knowledgeable about his topic.
Well, you know, and you as a single mom and out there at the radio station and everything, you know, I think you will admit that we all get into positions or circumstances as to, maybe I better be a little bit more cautious. Maybe I should be a little bit more careful. And today, more than ever before, I think awareness of where you are and what you're doing is very important.
Amen. You always get your head out of your headphones and get your face out of your phone and actually look around.
You know, I remember about, it was way back in 1970. And I was signing on in the morning at a radio station in Twin Falls when I moved out here from Wisconsin, and went up to the back door and turned the key in the door, and the station's dark, naturally, nobody else there, and the door was wide open. And you walk inside, and all of a sudden, I heard some rustling going on in one of the smaller studios, and all of a sudden, a person just literally ran by me in the dark, knocked me over, and out the door they went. Now, those kind of circumstances today, I think, are even more dangerous because of the times that we live in.
Yes, and it's true, and honestly, you know, when you walked into that station and the door was wide open, I would have, been, I probably would have called somebody, because if I'm here at the studio by myself, all the doors are locked.
Well, and then there's a lot to be said for self-protection, too.
Yes. As a matter of fact, yes.
And I'm one of these kind of guys that I've given, I don't mean to sound like a male sexist on this, but I'm just saying I've given Deanne really strict orders about if she's coming home from a meeting or something at night and somebody comes up behind her, even if it's a policeman with a flashing light, go to an area where there are people or very bright lights and do not pull over.
Well, that's just common sense, especially right now with there's a somebody that's impersonating a police officer in our area, so you just never do that. And if you're being pulled over and you think this person behind you really isn't a police officer, call 911.
Lock the doors and do not get out. Do not open the window up all the way, and just be very, very wary. I think most police would agree with me. Caution is much better than the alternative.
Yeah, if it's a true police officer, they will not mind that you are calling 911 to verify that it's actually them behind you, because if it's not, then you keep on driving until the police come to arrest the person behind you.
Did they ever catch that guy?
No, they have not yet.
They have not yet. And he was in the, Greater Twin Falls area?
Greater Twin Falls area, driving a black SUV with red and blue lights.
I hope that they catch him, and I hope possibly if he does it to some citizen, that maybe the husband's sleeping in the back seat, they get out and they have a personality adjustment, because this guy needs to be picked up, stopped, and incarcerated.
Well, as soon as he is, he will be, because impersonating an officer is a big felony.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. There was something else I was going to ask you about too quickly before we go. For those that are of the married type, like I am, 43 years, George and Barbara Bush celebrated, guess how many years yesterday? Do you know?
65?
70.
Wow.
70 years. George and Barbara Bush celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary yesterday, and that's really quite a milestone, isn't it?
It is. Is he still in the hospital? Because I know that over the Christmas break he was.
I think he was released, but I would not stand pat on that. I think he is out of the hospital. He's not in the best of health. Barbara seems to be doing relatively well, but George has had some problems.
Yeah, I remember reading that he was hospitalized over Christmas, and I haven't heard whether he was released or not.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a little commercial break, and I'll be right back, and then we'll wrap it up for this hour. Hey, don't forget life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. All of these different subjects are covered extensively because of their vast knowledge at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Yep, Dean Cameron, Todd Siemens. They are absolutely dedicated to serving you, and very accessible, very devoted to helping you, and make sure that you have everything financially protected. So you better get a hold of them today. 436-4424. 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Really nice people. I want to reiterate that next hour we're going to have Ryan Horsley on the phone, the owner of Red's Trading Post in Twin Falls, and we're going to be talking about self-protection and guns that would fit your personality, etc. And then at 10:30, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be going to Brian Fairchild. Now, I do not know the whereabouts of this man, and I don't think anybody does, because it's not open information. He's a former CIA operative, and he's been very, very open about his stance against this government and what we're not doing to protect ourselves. And we're going to be talking about this situation over in Paris, France. That's coming up at 10:30. So leave the dial right where it is at. Zeb Bell at Zeb at the Ranch, K-Bar, 1230. And we're going to take a little break right now for the news from CBS, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go away. Good morning. Welcome back. Hour number 3, Zeb at the Ranch, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. Wonderful folks. And also some of our great advertisers, including Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Locally owned Western Waste Services, 734-6969. Before we go to our guest, I want to remind you, great dining. Oh, if you like to eat like I do, you're you're going to enjoy the Chadwick Sports Grill today, 139 West Main in Burley. What have they got for a special today? They've got crispy salmon and cream cheese wontons. Hey, I love saying that. Crispy salmon and cream cheese wontons with vegetables, choice of potato soup or salad. You're going to love the wontons at Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. You stop in and see them today and have some wontons at the Chadwick Sports Grill. Let's go to the phone lines right now. A dear friend of ours and has been on the program many, many times. I've got the utmost respect for him and his business. Red's Trading Post, Ryan Horsley. Good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent, Zeb. And yourself?
Well, I was just going to have a wonton. You want one?
Absolutely. Send one over.
Okay. In all seriousness, Ryan, the reason I wanted you on the program is even been kind of exacerbated a little bit further this morning after what happened over in Paris, France. And I think people today, this is my own statement, if you agree with me, fine. If not, I got big shoulders. I think people today need to be very cognizant of what's going on around them and in their environment, and they must take the time and dedication to be able to protect themselves because the police can't be there in just a moment's notice. That being said, what are your thoughts about some of the gun control issues that seem to be coming down the pike?
Absolutely, Zeb. One of the things that I always say is, I have a lot of friends who are police officers. And when you talk with them, you talk with the younger officers, and I've mentioned this before, you talk with some of the younger officers, and they'll say, okay, you don't need a gun, and, we're there to protect you. But you talk with some of the older officers who've seen too much of it, that they come there after the fact, after there's, somebody's been raped, murdered, whatever else, and they understand that they can't always protect everyone. And so, and it's don't just go get a whistle, or, that there's, you need to have something, you need to know how to protect yourself. I'll even tell people when, they take some of our classes, that, at least take it. I have a lot of people who say, I've never owned a gun, and I've never owned a gun. I don't know if I'd feel comfortable. I'm like, what? At least, get the education and get in there and understand it's a tool, and how to use it, and also understanding, understanding your rights, understanding, what it is, and understanding how to better protect yourself.
One of the stories I wanted to mention to you this morning, and I'm sure that with your business and your expertise, you probably read the last Sunday's edition of the Times News and read the op-ed piece, not only against the NRA, but also basically against guns and gun owners. If you read that article, what was your general summation of what they said and how they said it?
Well, I always think that it's interesting because, especially in the last several articles the Times News has written, they basically they make it sound like all gun owners, cower down and bow down and do everything that the NRA. No, I don't get I get my marching orders from common sense. And common sense. I don't always agree with it. I don't always agree with the NRA, and but at the same time, it's just this, trying to paint all gun owners as that, that we're, ignorant and we get all of our information from the NRA. And, the fact of the matter is that, I thought that it was, blame, it's the old liberal agenda as far as just blaming any tragedy, and that's what the Brady campaign has done for years. Anytime there's a tragedy, there they were to blame guns, and you have a couple different things that have happened, and they're unfortunate, and there are ways to properly protect yourself. There's, as far as education and everything else, but it's not a blaming everything. And and I like how they tried to stop the argument by saying, okay, the whole don't blame a Ford for a car accident.
Yeah.
But you know what? In simplicity, that's really what it is. But they want to take that argument away. But that argument's valid.
I'm glad you brought that point out, Ryan, because let me read that and give a quote as to what they said in one of their paragraphs. Quote, the NRA often pulls out the classic, you don't blame Ford when there's a car wreck line, which doesn't make any sense. Vehicles are heavily regulated and only operated by licensed drivers. Now, Ryan, right there I'm going to stop, because in the same newspaper a day later, they had a huge story about unlicensed motorists in California that were creating all kinds of accidents and had driven for over 10 years. So they didn't do any research before they said only operated by licensed drivers.
Well, it goes back to, even from our standpoint as well. They want to, there's Bloomberg is one of this push to, going after gun shops.
Yes.
For if a firearm that was purchased there was used in a tragedy. But my first question is, okay, was that legally purchased? And and do we get to the point of going after the car dealerships or whomever else in that respect? It was followed through. It was. And I've even, had that in a sense as well, that, I've seen some of these articles where they're going after the gun shop, and on one of them in particular, the gun it was sold to a gentleman. The firearm was then stolen, but they still wanted to go after this gun shop. And, it's like, no. It was out of their control. They transferred it. It was sold to a law-abiding person legally, and then it was stolen from his home and then used in a crime. You cannot go after one, and they also were trying to go after the guy it was stolen from. I'm sorry, but Zeb, if you, if your home gets broken into and your firearms are stolen, that's very unfortunate. But to add insult to injury, you don't go after that person. Don't go after that. The victim already who had their firearms.
Absolutely.
It's just real. It's not realistic, and they don't use common sense in this.
Let me ask you this. They were very critical of the NRA, the National Rifle Association, and I will say that at certain circumstances over the last, let's say 10 years, there were some things that I didn't agree in entirety with the NRA, but why? Why do you think that the Times News editorial was so absolutely denigrating of the NRA and its policies?
What they're attempting to do is they're trying to get people to disassociate with the NRA, and that's just it. If it's blasted enough that, and this is the approach that they're trying nationwide. They are furious that the NRA memberships have continued to increase. And a lot of the liberals and the anti-gun group are furious over that. And so, they're attempting to, you're a member of the NRA. Okay, you're a horrible person. You're an absolute horrible person. And, and that's not the case. It's as people have their NRA bumper stickers or anything else, they're attempting just to smear them by association. Oh, do you agree with the NRA? And even in that sense, they've been trying for years to have other sensible groups, sensible gun groups. They had the one with all the with a couple past members of the Brady campaign, and and they'll give the sound bites going, I stand for the Second Amendment, and then wait for a minute, and with reasonable restrictions. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. And politicians do that as well. Wait, what's this? Wait for the pause. What's this reasonable restrictions? Well, boy, we shouldn't have this and this and this, and Saturday, they'll use terms like Saturday Night Special, and people are like, oh yeah, Saturday Night Special. Well, wait a minute, that's an affordable firearm, and so you're trying to say certain people shouldn't own a firearm, and other things. Even 50 caliber rifles. They even have a whole agenda against 50 caliber rifles. None has ever been used in a crime. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they're like, these are much too powerful. Just imagine what could happen. And it's like, these guns are $5,000 and up. And, no gang members or anybody else is, running around with, $5,000 single shot 50 caliber rifle. Right. It's just ludicrous.
Let me read the last paragraph of the op-ed, and then I want you to respond to it, Ryan. I said, quote, "It's time for a real conversation about guns in America, one that's been silenced for too long. Guns are dangerous, even if the gun industry's primary mouthpiece refuses to admit it." Now, the ambiguities that are in that paragraph, Ryan, number one, I think everybody's been open for a real conversation, but what do they want to discuss, and what do they want to have as a bottom line? And who has silenced them, and why are they saying the gun industry's primary mouthpiece refuses to admit it? I mean, there's so many vagaries there. Please comment your thoughts.
That's just it. It's just we're not getting our way. We're not getting our way. Yeah, guns are dangerous. And I mean, we sell firearms every day, and the fact of the matter is that we, you have to be, educated. We encourage, education, and everybody is, everyone teaches that, and that's just it. Proper handling of firearms, to either hunt with or carry for personal protection. And you take a look. The big story yesterday was this police officer who shot himself with his own gun in an elevator. Okay, let's just disarm the police, because you have this tragedy that this police officer has shot himself in the stomach in an elevator, and it's the argument is ridiculous. It's if we using the same logic that they don't want to use, but if all of a sudden we point to the person driving into Pizza Hut last night and say, boy, you know what, we shouldn't have cars. They cause accidents. This is what happens, and it's the same logic. They don't want to use that logic because it's common sense. But it's not going to be okay with them until they begin to slowly disarm. Just and it's splitting it up. It's saying, boy, we don't need assault weapons, and boy, we don't need 50 caliber rifles, and we don't need Saturday Night Specials, and then they just continue to whittle it away, and then you find yourself in the same place as Australia, or where you have to where you and me and the rest of the community have to lock up all of our guns in a common place if we ever want to use them. It's ridiculous, and look at the tragedy a couple of weeks ago over in Australia. It's just unfortunate.
Well, look at what happened just this morning, our time, noontime, over in Europe, in Paris, France, where they had 3 terrorist killers walk into a magazine company and kill 12 and wound 10 others. And France, Paris, France in particular, has some of the most stringent gun laws in the world.
Absolutely, and there's but the Times News doesn't want to deal with common sense on this. It's just a we go back to that time and time again, and you take a look at all the horrible things that are going to be happening at CSI because they passed the allowed concealed weapons on. Yeah. Haven't seen anything yet, and and same within Utah. They yell and scream that tragedy is going to happen, and I think that there was a in one of the places there was a person who their firearm accidentally went off, and improper gun handling. Mm-hmm. However, there's nothing else that's happened, and they want to point to a couple of these cases, but that's it. Just improper gun handling, and nobody wants to beat up the mother who who was tragically shot.
Yeah.
We even take a look at that. I have so many moms and single moms who are beginning to start taking classes and carrying. I had a woman several years ago. She wanted to purchase a firearm, and she said, what, I want to purchase a gun, for my protection, but but didn't want to touch it. And I told her at that point, I said, I don't want to sell it to you. She's like, you have to. And I said, no, I don't. And I said, if you're not, she didn't want to take any classes or anything like that. I said, you're going to, there's going to be a tragedy, in this. If you don't understand the tool, you can't sit there and so, she said she was going to go somewhere else and purchase it. And that's fine. But that's on my conscience. I try to get, every person who purchases a firearm, and just like every other gun owner as well, kind of check in with other people. Have you, do you properly handle it? And we pass that along to our kids and our grandkids that, proper education, and not just assuming that they know, but hey, let's take some classes. You know what? Let's humble ourselves and say, maybe I don't know everything.
Absolutely.
There's so many classes available anymore. Maybe I don't know everything, and educate yourself a little bit better, on proper handling, and that's what it boils down to.
Let me ask you this question, and I think I've mentioned this to you before when you've been on the air. I'm sure that you do get a lot of first-time gun owners, whether they're male or female, and I would imagine perhaps the perception is the larger the caliber, they think the better. But in many, many cases, you try to fit the gun with the personality and the person, do you not?
We do. One of the funny things is that, especially if anyone's taking one of John Chapman's course of LMS defense, John will, if a person comes in and purchases a gun for his class, he will send them right back in, if they purchase the wrong firearm. So, our staff as well is just, because it's, there's a lot of times it's, gee, the customer's always right, and, for a while there we were getting a lot of women, who were reading magazines that said, okay, I need that Taurus Judge where I can shoot a 45 long Colt and a 410, and then going out to his course, and he's like, no, take it back. Take it back and, get a Glock 19 or get something to that effect. So, but yeah, it's, trying to, and a lot of people think as well, hey, it's the most expensive one, that's the best one. But no, it's trying to figure out what's the best one for you, and, fitting it to that particular person and what they're going to be using it for.
What do you see, Ryan, in the time remaining? I've got about 3 minutes left. What do you see looming on the horizon? We know already about the Michael Bloombergs. We know about the other people that are willing to donate millions and millions of dollars to have a gun confiscation program. We know about the treaties with the United Nations trying to enforce their will here in this country. What are you hearing that might still come up during the remaining 2 years of Obama's administration?
I think that there's, they're setting up the chess pieces, and that's basically what it boils down to. And this, we always have the calm before the storm, because, a tragedy is always on the horizon. And, and certain people are always looking to capitalize on those tragedies. And, we can do everything that we can to try to predict and be prepared for one of these tragedies. But when they do happen, it's mobilizing, in that, it's them mobilizing in that direction, that okay, boy, we've had enough, we can't do this anymore, and we have to get some common sense, and that term always comes up, common sense, gun restrictions. And so, I think it's the same plan. It's the same plan, and just continuing to build behind the scenes, because it's going to happen. The main thing is the mood of the is the mood of citizens, and what's happening there. So if there's enough people outraged, they have to hurry and capitalize on that, while the emotions are high. They don't want you to think in logic, they want you to think in emotions. And you know, and you know as well as I do that we don't make the best decisions when we think in regards to emotions rather than logic.
Absolutely. One last question, Ryan. The LMS defense courses, do they lay out exactly not only the defense of the person and the family, but also how to use the gun and under what circumstances, etc.? But do they also cover what states that the concealed weapons permit is good in?
Yes, absolutely. We work with two different companies. We work with Legal Heat, and we also work with LMS Defense. And both of those two do a great job, really educating. And at the same time, you have laws that are constantly changing, that you can call them back at any time and say, hey, Legal Heat's a great one that, I took a course 2 years ago, and a lot has changed. Well, you can go back and take the course for free. And they'll let you do that. It's pretty nice because, and they have apps for your phone and everything like that. They continue to update. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and if people want to stop in or give us a call and just find out what's new, we can point them in those directions. We try to stick with these companies that there's a lot of them that have kind of come out of the woodwork, and some of them that have gone by the wayside. But some of these companies that are a good reflection on us, that we know that are taking care of our customers and giving them good information.
Absolutely. This man knows at Reg Trading Post, Ryan Horsley, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. Number to call him, 733-3546. Ryan, thank you so much, and I'll have you back on in the near future. Great job this morning.
All right, thanks, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Ryan Horsley at Red's Trading Post. Oh, my. Hey, by the way, guess who's back on the program this morning? And we're so happy to have Christine Pickup. And she is with Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Did you hear what I just said? Well, maybe during the Christmas holidays, the grandkids were climbing up on your lap and they said something. You go, huh? What'd you say, Ralphie? Well, listen, maybe you're losing some of your hearing. Maybe you'd better go have your hearing checked. Hearing loss is not a part of aging. Do not ignore hearing loss. Not an age problem. Why don't you just please call 312-0957. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, Christine Pickup, Doctor of Audiology. She's located at 1218 9th Street, Unit 2, right behind the Minidoka Hospital and right across from the emergency room. That number again, 312-0957. Did you hear that? I hope so. Call Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Right now, we're going to take a little break and send this back over to our main studios and the lovely Gina. And coming up right after the break, we're going to have Brian Fairchild, former CIA operative, talking about what happened in France and other issues about national security. You stay tuned. I'll be right back.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KVAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much. Welcome back. I'm going to do something a little different here real quick. I'm going to do the weather forecast before I get Brian on the air because I don't want to interrupt him in the middle of our conversation. The weather this hour brought to you by Scarro's Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome, selling taste one bite at a time. Oh my goodness, locally owned custom meat processor serving the Jerome and all of southern Idaho area for over 20 years. The very best of beef, pork, lamb, wild game processing, everything at Scarro's Meats. 331 North Road, Jerome. And right now here, Michael Rogers weather.
Hello everyone, Michael Rogers is at the ranch. It's going to be a nice day. It's going to be a nice day. Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a nice day. It's kind of hard at times to forecast the weather when you know it's going to be a nice day. 40s for the high, mid-40s to be exact. And your overnight low will be right around 27, 28. So that's all I got to say. Enjoy the weather. It's on the way to you.
Thank you, Michael. Brought to you by Scarro's Meats. Don Scarrow and the rest of the crew, absolutely the best. And they sell taste one bite at a time at 331 North Road, Jerome, 324-7657. There's a gentleman that has become a pretty doggone good friend over the, I guess, years now, and we're very proud to have him on this program because he knows, a former CIA operative and very, very knowledgeable about the world conditions as they are today, and that's Brian Fairchild. Brian, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Zeb. I'm doing fine. How are you doing, brother?
Well, I'm good, but I'm very, very nervous. I've been keeping my eye since 4 o'clock this morning and my ear on what's happening over in Paris, France, with that absolutely heinous crime of 12 people dead, many, many more shot and wounded by what they think are ISIS Muslim terrorists. And, boy, it's all because they ran a satirical cartoon about the Prophet Muhammad. And I think the thing that people ought to be worried about, and I want you to elaborate on it, it can happen anywhere, anytime.
Oh, absolutely, Zeb. And in fact, let me give you a little bit of a background on this. During the attack against Charlie Hebdo, the magazine in France, the two attackers identified themselves, at least reportedly, identified themselves in perfect French as Al-Qaeda. So what does that mean to us? If that's true, that goes along with a newly established plan by Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda came out on Christmas Eve, Zeb, and published its new magazine. It's the latest issue of its official magazine called Inspire Magazine. In Inspire Magazine, it starts out by saying that the magazine and Al-Qaeda are committed to arming lone jihadis and small groups in order to perpetuate the jihad against the United States and others. Now, in this issue of the magazine, Zeb, they pull out all the stops. They say, this has always been important to us, having lone jihadis and small groups go out and attack different countries, but we've neglected putting enough resources into this, and we're really going to do that now. We're going to, put on a full-court press and really support and encourage lone jihadis and small groups to go out and attack. So if you look at that as a context, coming out on December 24th, and now you have this attack, this could very well be the first salvo, if you will, in the new program to have lone jihadis and small groups start attacking throughout, the UK, France, and the United States.
If you were to write the headline of this massacre that occurred over in Paris, France, what would you say it was? I mean, Josh Earnest was on television early this morning, and he used words like extremists and radicalists, and then he went on to say, and this is so bland, he said, we condemn in the strongest possible terms what happened. I mean, there's no definitive action or naming who the culprits are. Am I right or wrong that it's about time we started calling it what it is?
Well, of course you are. I mean, this is an Islamic jihadi attack. That's all it is. It's an Islamic jihadi attack. These guys that just killed these people in France are Muslim jihadis. That's what they are, and they identify themselves as it. They say Allahu Akbar. They say we've just honored the Prophet's name, by killing the people who were satirizing him and so forth and so on. This goes back to many of our conversations in the past, Zeb, about how, we have not yet identified and named the enemy. We run the other way. We're so afraid, we're so politically correct and so afraid of offending anybody that we still have not named the enemy. And until you name the enemy and understand the enemy, you can't defeat the enemy. Because if you're running after a bunch of extremists, violent extremists, where do you find them? Is there a violent extremist union down the street? But if you're focused on radical Muslim jihadis, well, you might very well find a radical Muslim mosque, somewhere in some of these countries. So until we name the enemy, until we define the enemy, we can't really defeat the enemy, Zeb.
Brian, in your opinion, and your opinion is so valuable to me because you've been spot on with your information, has America become naive again since 9/11? Have they forgot the atrocities and the horrors? Are we just absolutely thinking we're living in a la-la world and it can't to any degree happen here?
Well, I mean, it has been happening here. You know, we've had the beheadings, we've had the attacks, the hatchet attacks against the New York cops.
Yes.
We've had an axe attack down in Arizona. We've had attacks here. I mean, they're continuing. We had the attacks recently up in Canada. So to go to your question, I think there's a combination of things. One is that since the administration has not identified and named the enemy, it's hard for the citizenry to really, gel around a specific concept. If the concept of the United States government is there are a bunch of, Muslim, jihadis that are plotting against the United States, and some of them are here in the United States, that would be a certain avenue that American, public opinion can follow. But when these attacks happen and the administration goes to great lengths to say, oh, this is just a violent extremist, well, there's no indications of anything else. Oh, we're going to ignore the fact that this guy had radical Islamist stuff on his Facebook page, so just ignore that and we're moving on. I mean, if you do that, it's hard for the American public to gel around the concept. Another aspect is that I think because the terrorism has been around for so long, and there's so many atrocities coming out, of Syria and Iraq, beheadings and genocide and reestablishment of slavery and rape and selling of girls as slaves, 9 years old and younger for the most money. That kind of thing. I think that over a period of time, a population becomes desensitized to this sort of thing, and violence is on TV all the time. Violence is on, in the movies. Violence is on video games, and I think to a certain extent, we've become, desensitized to all this stuff. And unless it happens to you directly, it's hard to get really excited about it.
I would say this, that I had a guest on earlier this morning, and we were talking about the same subject. His name was Matt Philbin with the Media Research Center back in Washington. And he and I both agreed that the media itself is probably the biggest culprit. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. Well, the media has certainly gone along with the administration and goes to great lengths to portray these folks as violent extremists, or not even violent extremists, just reporting many of these instances as crime, and it only comes out in Fox News and other avenues that pushes the concept that, well, no other evidence was found that indicates that these guys are Islamist radicals. So yes, the mainstream media is certainly complicit in this whole situation, Zeb.
If you were to look into a crystal ball right now with your expertise, Brian, and you and I were talking a couple of days ago about coming on the program, and then it's just been exacerbated with the problem over in Paris, France, what would you tell Americans they should be watching for or cognizant of? What certain things in their daily routines might be an attack target?
Yeah, well, this is getting increasingly more serious. We have a situation, Zeb, where the Islamic State and Al Qaeda are actually fighting for dominance of the jihad. Al Qaeda is actually losing in that war. But that's why they came out on the eve with this new magazine and saying, hey, we've got to pull out all the stops and we've got to support the Islamic Jihad in small groups. Well, ISIS is saying the same thing. And so both groups are of one mind about attacking the United States. In fact, in Inspire magazine, the one that just came out on December 24th, they say, one of the guys speaking in the magazine says, well, the priorities are the United States of America, the UK, and France. But if I had 5 jihadis, the guy says, if I had 5 jihadis and I had to determine where I was going to put those 5 jihadis, I would put them all in the United States. So that gives you an indication of how they regard the priorities. Now, given that, they have pulled out all the stops and said, here's how you kill Americans. You kill them with a knife, kill them with a rock, kill them with a hatchet, kill them with poison, run them over in your car, use pressure cookers to form bombs. And worse yet, Deb, in this latest issue, they have given the recipe out, which was their kind of very secretly held recipe for a non-metallic bomb that can get through airport security.
Oh my!
And most of the issue, a great part of the issue of this magazine focuses on how lone jihadis can circumvent airport security at local airports, not big hubs, but local airports that don't have body scanners, in order to bring these non-metallic bombs onto the plane and blow the planes up. And they specifically state that Delta Airlines, American Airlines, United Airlines, and some British and French airlines are specific targets. So that's the threat that we face. The threat continues to grow. We continue to see these, these kind of attacks happening, like I was mentioning earlier with the hatchet attacks and the beheading in Oklahoma and so forth. So this is what I see in my crystal ball, Zeb, is as we look forward, we're going to see much more of this. The kind of thing that we just saw in France, the kind of stuff we've seen up in Canada, and the kind of attacks that we've already experienced here.
Let me ask you this, and I'm showing some naivete here myself, Brian, but you mentioned this magazine from Al-Qaeda. I dare ask you, is this a magazine, honestly, that in large metropolitan areas you can just walk up to a newsstand and buy over the counter?
No, I've never seen. I've never seen it over the counter. It comes through the internet. It looks exactly like a glossy magazine that you would buy over the counter, but it's widely available over Twitter, over different internet sites, different jihadi sites, and like when I heard that it had come out, Zeb, on Christmas Eve. Within, 25 to 30 minutes, I had a fully downloaded copy.
Oh, my goodness.
And I didn't get it from any special counter-terrorist database. I went on Twitter. I ran the name on Twitter. A couple of different Twitter feeds came up, and I was able to click on one and get the entire download. So this is something that's available to everybody. Now, another aspect of this, Zeb, is that, this is available to everybody. Not just jihadis. This is available to regular criminals. This is nutcases, people around the world. So anybody who wants to spend the time, and they show, what I neglected to mention, is they give the recipe of this new explosives material, this non-metallic explosives material. They show you step by step how to make it with simple ingredients like matchsticks and ingredients from nail polish and things along this line. Everything, things that are readily available to everybody in this country, and they give you a step by step procedure with pictures and showing you how much you measure and what you do and how long you cook it. And it's a terribly powerful bomb recipe that now everybody in the world has, and this was closely held by Al-Qaeda for a long time. And I think that the reason why they've given it out is because they're going with this full-fledged, full-court press on lone jihad and small groups, and they want everybody to be able to have access to it so that they can do the most carnage and the most damage.
Let me ask you this question, and anybody else I don't think is prepared or educated to answer it as you are. You're the number one man. Our government has shown a disdain for increasing our security and our knowledge and our intelligence, and this particular Obama administration wants to cut back on everything. How ill prepared are we right now for our protection?
Well, I'll tell you, we have a real problem because, as we've mentioned over your show, a couple of times before, in April 2010, the president and the then National Security Advisor, now CIA Director, John Brennan, they put out a policy where they said we're not going to use any kind of religious terms in the description of Islamic terrorism. So we're not going to say Islamic terrorism, Islamic radicals, jihadis. We're not going to say any of that stuff. We're going to call them violent extremists. At the same time, the president was courting and supporting the Muslim Brotherhood overseas. And so he supported the Morsi regime in Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood rose up and took power, then tried to install Sharia law, and the Egyptians themselves rose up and threw him out of power, and so forth and so on. The problem is that when an administration comes out and says, in our training materials, and you FBI agents being trained at the FBI Academy, and you cops being trained all over the country, you're not going to learn anything about the problem now. Because we're not going to go into the Muslim Brotherhood as the backbone of the ideological jihad, and we're not going to talk about Muslim radicals or Islamist radicals or jihadis. We're going to tell you that there are violent extremists out there. So what that means is and nothing against the cops and the FBI. The boss has told them, we're not going there. So if you don't go there, you don't learn it. If you don't learn it, you can't investigate it. If you can't investigate it, you can't preempt it. If you can't preempt it, you get attacked and killed. So that's how unprepared we are. As you well know, I spent basically 10 years after 9/11 teaching the FBI, CIA, and about 10,000 cops around the nation about what this stuff was all about the ideology, what the groups were in the United States, how they operated. But we don't do that anymore. And so all those people that my business partner and I trained have now been moved into different jobs, and the people that are in those counterterrorism positions have no knowledge of Islamism, Islamist terrorism, so forth and so on.
Oh my!
So we're, in my opinion, we're very ill prepared to deal with this, other than to investigate crimes after they've happened.
I'm sitting here and I'm just shaking my head in absolute disbelief as to how backward we could be in trying to protect ourselves. But let me back up a couple of months. How bad did the torture report, if you will, hurt the CIA and our intelligence gathering services? How bad did that hurt us when they released that information?
Well, I think it certainly hurt us. And there's no doubt it's hurt us. But Zeb, this whole report has been talked about for basically 10 years. So, there were a few new details about specific waterboarding events. Excuse me. I'm having a bout of hay fever up here. But there are a few new reports, but it was all a variation on the theme. So all of our liaison services already had known about this. All of them, the foreign intelligence services that we deal with, all of them had already had to deal with this. This was another rub your nose in it sort of thing, but it wasn't a major revelation. So most of the terrorists knew about this for 10 years. The liaison services knew about it for 10 years. The United States government and the United States citizens knew about it for 10 years. For instance, there are movies on TV like Zero Dark 30, that depict all of these techniques. Every American, I think, in the United States knows what waterboarding means. So this new revelation coming out of the Senate was really a political move. It was done by the Democratic staff, and it was done for political reasons, but it wasn't a bombshell from the intelligence point of view because it had already been out for 10 years. Right. So it certainly doesn't help us, and in these magazines that I've referred to, they refer to the torture and so forth and so on. So it will inspire some people to join the jihad, other jihadis to go out and commit violent acts, but it won't be a game changer.
Okay. Brian, I've only got a couple of minutes left, and I need to ask this next question. Everybody already this morning has been saying, at other points of interest, security has been enhanced, and they're looking to step up security. But how much is too much, or how much is still not enough in security to try to protect people?
Yeah, well, there's a great question, Zeb. And we don't probably have long enough to really discuss it. I would just say that this has to be intelligence driven. You have to really understand the enemy. If you understand the enemy and its network and its ideological network in the United States, you can start shutting down those networks. You can start passing laws, as all the laws that we pass, anti-terrorism laws, well, you can pass anti-ideology laws too. The Brits are moving forward on this. I think the French are moving forward on this too, but we have not. So, their security can only really be formed around what you actually know. Otherwise, you're just taking shots in the dark. And I think we're taking shots in the dark a lot because we're not making our security procedures specific to the threats, and that's a no-win situation any way you look at it.
All I can say is that thank God for people like you, and the invitation is wide open. Anytime you get down in this area, I'll take you out for the biggest steak dinner you've ever had. God bless you, my dear friend, and thank you for coming on our program this morning.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Zeb. I'll be talking to you soon, sir.
I hope so. God bless you. Brian Fairchild, former CIA operative, talking about terror, and it is an eye-opener. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. I want to remind everybody about our friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Oh, they care. They really, really care about your safe driving. They've got all the tires, performance tires, to make sure you get where you're going safely. And tires like the Strategy, starting at just $91.18. All-season design, long tread life. And, of course, they've got all the tires that are pinned for studs. They got all the traction tires and the snow chains. And the best in front-end alignments, shocks and struts, and batteries. Boy, they've got a wide array of batteries to get your car started on those cold winter mornings. You better stop in and talk to the best. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and my old buddy Randy on Overland and Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Gina, we only got about a minute and a half or so left to go for the program this morning, but time goes way too fast when Brian Fairchild's on the air.
And he's such a wealth of knowledge, too. He really is. And I didn't even know about that magazine out on Twitter.
Isn't that's astounding?
Yeah. They're teaching people how to make non-metallic bombs right on the internet, and they're just saying, okay, this is how you go out and kill Americans. Go forth.
You know, killing and maiming and destroying society and crippling children, and that's a magazine? I mean, yeah. I hate to sound naive, but I'm of an older generation now, and this is unheard of.
It is very, very disturbing. Very disturbing.
Well, and that's why we're going to keep people like Brian on our program, because God bless him for speaking out and never to have his voice silenced. I just absolutely appreciate him, and we're going to have him back on very soon in the next couple of days. Tomorrow is Thursday, and that means kind of a cluster of all kinds of segments, from the Chamber Report to Starving to Death and Rita and the Cassia County School Days and everything else. And we invite you to tune in at 8:06. Zeb at the Ranch right here on K-Bar, 12:30 a.m. And then streaming live all over the universe on ZebBell.com. And we'll be ready to go. And remember, our tagline, the way things were are the way things ought to be. I'm blessed. Gina at the studio, Deanne right here, and a great audience and all of our advertisers. Until tomorrow morning at 8:06, God bless. Have a wonderful day.